Good morning, Commissioner Glasgow and local commissioners and staff of the Family Responsibilities Commission. I am so sorry that I cannot be with you here today at this very important conference. I'm so very grateful for the work that you have all been doing on behalf of our families in our 4 communities. We're now been working for over a decade supporting our family members and our communities to build a new future for our future generations. You have all done a great power of work over this long period of time, and you have done truly wonderful things on behalf of our children. I want to first acknowledge the traditional owners of the land here in Cairns. I always say in gatherings in this city that I want to acknowledge my own godfather, Mr. Deeral, who is Erica's grandfather, and uncle, the late uncle, Eric Deeral's father, Fred. My father, for some great unknown reason to me as a child, chose him to be my godfather. He was a great moral guide for me, and he was taken as a young boy from Deeral Siding, south of Cairns, from the Idingi people of this region. And hardly a day goes by when I don't think about him. I am forever grateful that a person such as he has been a light in my life. I want to thank all of you for persevering, particularly in this difficult past year, when the future of the FRC has been under a cloud. We have not known what the policy of the Queensland government would be, and we still don't clearly know what it is today in relation to the question of welfare reform and income management and the role of the Family Responsibilities Commission. Despite the long period of time we have been asking questions about the future of the FRC, of the Queensland government, we're still subject to quite a bit of uncertainty about the future. Before I talk about what we might do given this situation, I want to talk about a couple of crucial ideas. Firstly, the idea of responsibility. We in Cape York have been champions of the idea of responsibility. Back in 1999, I wrote a short paper called Our Right to Take Responsibility. That idea that we have a right to take responsibility was not my own idea. I actually borrowed it from an Indigenous leader from Greenland. And he was the Premier of the Indigenous government in Greenland, and he came on our invitation to talk to us here in Cairns about self-government for his people. And I just recall him saying to us that self-government and self-determination is a great responsibility. It is the right to take responsibility. It is all about hard work. And he opened my eyes to what the meaning of self-determination was. If you're going to demand the right to self-determination, you are demanding the right to take responsibility. If you want self-determination, you have to be prepared to take responsibility. And I was immediately captured by that truth. It's not enough to say you want power and control, and you want the right to make decisions to determine the future of your family and your community. That's not enough. You also have to take responsibility for that future. You can't turn around and expect someone else to do the work. You can't turn around and expect someone else to help the children. You can't turn around and expect the neighbourhood to be a peaceful place, a healthy place, a fun place for children to grow up in, if you don't take responsibility for securing that. The safety and health and good education of children requires someone to take responsibility for it. And mother, father, auntie, uncle, grandparents, community members, we have to take responsibility for that. So responsibility is a great power. In my mind, it's the same thing as self-determination. And yet in Indigenous policy, it's only in Cape York that people talk about responsibility. And I am so very proud and so very glad and feel so very supported by you as local commissioners, because you talk in the language of responsibility. And we've been talking that language for more than 10 years. It is a language we all accept and that we push on a day-to-day basis. Now, in Indigenous affairs across the country, there's a lot of talk about high expectations, that there should be relationships of high expectations between governments and Indigenous communities, and between Indigenous leaders and Indigenous community members, and between ourselves as members of the community. Well, I think expecting people to take responsibility and to carry their own responsibility is the highest expectation we can have of each other. If you're going to have high expectations of each other, expect responsibility. And yet the people who talk about high expectations never talk about responsibility. It's a strange thing. But we in Cape York, we have high expectations of each other. We expect everyone to pull their weight, to carry responsibility for the children, because if we don't, who will? There's a second idea I want to talk about. There's a lot of talk in Indigenous policy about deficit and asset approaches to development. There's a lot of talk saying, well, we can't talk deficit language, we should be talking about strengths language. The strengths of people, not the deficits. They don't want to talk about dysfunction. They don't want to talk about addictions. They don't want to talk about grog or gambling or violence or child abuse or child neglect or elder abuse or money mismanagement. That's deficit thinking, according to this line of argument. Rather, they want to talk about the positive things, the strengths and the assets that people have. Now, I have no problem with that. But you know what I think the greatest asset and the greatest strength that any individual or community or family can have? The greatest strength is self-reliance and responsibility. You want to talk about assets? You want to talk about working with people's strengths? Start with their own responsibility. It is the greatest power. You want to lift a family out of misery, out of poverty? We've got to work with their responsibility. But the very people who talk about a strengths-based approach don't even mention the idea of responsibility. When in fact, you look all over the world, you look in the mainstream, you look in the third world, you look in societies that are strong and prosperous, you see people taking responsibility. It is the greatest, and sometimes it is the only asset that poor people have. But you can build great things with that asset. And my problem with the people who use the rhetoric of asset and strength-based approaches is that they nearly never talk about personal responsibility and family responsibility. It's just words. There's nothing real behind the idea of strengths-based approaches. So, we in Cape York, and particularly you as local commissioners of the Family Responsibilities Commission, you know the language of responsibility. You know the power of it. You know the fire that responsibility represents in the breasts of the mothers and of the individuals and of the fathers that want something better for themselves and their children. I now want to talk about the question of income management. The work of the Family Responsibilities Commission is absolutely crucial because of the authority that you have as members of your communities. You're all members of a moral community. You're not just a bunch of citizens or people gathered living together. You're members of a moral community. Your own Arukun, Mossman, Hopevale and Cohen communities. I say you're a moral community but because you're concerned about the future. You're concerned about this idea that your community is a kind of gathering of the past, the present, and the future. You're concerned about the spirits of our ancestors, about our present-day community members, and the unborn children of the future. That's what we're concerned about. The community that we are concerned about involves those three things: the living, the dead, and the future unborn children. And we're concerned for that community, we're worried for that community, we love that community, and we want a long future for that community. And we got a moral responsibility for that community, and I'm so very glad all of you have put your hands up for that community. And income management, simply managing the resources we get from society, from the government, to the best of our ability to provide for our children, provide for our families. Don't misuse it. Use it to create a better life, has got to be our starting point. And it's the one tool that's available to you as local commissioners to help support those families and individuals that are struggling with themselves, their addictions, their problems, their children, their families. You have a tool to manage income. I know you use it in a very judicious way. You use it carefully. You make a judgment of love for your people. Sometimes it's tough, sometimes it's gentle, but always it's done with a motivation of love. Because you love your community and you love your people. Income management is crucial. We can't let it go. In fact, we must expand income management. We're not over our problems yet. We still got very many problems to solve. And income management is just a tool, an important tool for us to use to help our families. So, after 10 years, I was hoping that we would have income management all over Cape York Peninsula. All of our other communities also need income management. They need local commissioners exercising authority and moral leadership. So at this conference today and this week, I want you to think of our work as just the beginning. This is not the dying days of the Family Responsibilities Commission. This is the first phase done, and a new phase for an expanded future has to open up for the rest of Cape York Peninsula. We have got to fight for the principle of welfare reform and income management for all of our people in Cape York. And I'm so very glad that I can count on your leadership and your moral courage in defending and advocating the principle of responsibility and income management and welfare reform for our people. Now, what do we do about the future? Well, we're in a strange situation where one government, the federal government, is on our side in relation to the issue of income management, welfare reform, and responsibility. But the Queensland State Government is not. The Queensland State Government, I think, do not accept the idea of welfare reform. Furthermore, they do not accept the idea of income management. And I think the uncertainty and confusion that has prevailed over the last 12 months is a reflection of the fact that they don't believe in those ideas. If they could get rid of income management, they would. This is very unfortunate, because when we started the Family Responsibilities Commission and the Cape York Welfare Reform in 2008, we had the two governments in a tripartite agreement with us. That is, we had three parties to welfare reform: the Commonwealth Government, the Queensland Government, and our communities. And now one of those parties has fallen away and seems intent upon getting rid of, in the long run, income management and welfare reform, because they do not believe in it. It's a strange situation, because it was a Labor government that entered into the partnership with us in 2007-2008. It was Anna Bligh as Premier who legislated the Family Responsibilities Commission. We had many differences with Anna Bligh. I recall that we had many arguments over the Wild Rivers legislation with Anna Bligh, but she never used those arguments to attack any of these social reform programs. She stuck with and supported the Family Responsibilities Commission and welfare reform and all of the associated programs. We had steadfast support from Premier Bligh in relation to welfare reform and the FRC. Indeed, she was instrumental in stripping the community councils, stripping the alcohol licences from the shire councils. So she showed a great deal of courage, and in my view, she saved many scores of lives. Scores and scores of Aboriginal lives have been saved in Cape York because of her courage in getting rid of the canteens. So this is not a Labor government thing or a Liberal government thing. This is a thing about a changed government here in Queensland. And a very strong intention on behalf of its Director General and probably the Minister to get rid of welfare reform and income management. I'm not sure that we are going to be able to dissuade them from that agenda. I need all of you to think very deeply about this week. You need to make a judgment about what we do as individual communities and as a collective. I also want to bring in Doomadgee into this equation. I'm just so absolutely pleased that the leaders of Doomadgee have voluntarily chosen to join us in the agenda of family responsibility, and I commend you for the work that you're doing on behalf of your people. But we have to make some judgments this week about how we not only preserve the reform agenda that we created 10 years ago, but make a judgment about moving to the next phase, to expand, to think even more ambitiously about the future of our people and what we need to do. There's so much work to do. And the work is so urgent. The rate of suicides of our young people is getting worse. The mental health problems are growing. The rate of child removal is soon going to be over 50% for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children. The rate of incarceration in prison is growing. And there is nothing that the governments are doing that is turning around those numbers. So the work is still huge and the challenges are still great. And rather than being defeated, rather than feeling morose about the future, I think we need to find a new energy. We have to find a new renewal of belief in our people, of belief in the principle of responsibility. And so I'm going to ask all of you here at the Recall Week to think very hard about what we do. I personally think, and I think everyone knows my view, that I believe the Department of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Policy, its Director General and Minister, are out to destroy our reform agenda. Nothing less. I have a very firm belief that that is their agenda. So we have to work with the Commonwealth Government, and we cannot give up. In fact, we have to move forward with an agenda that grows welfare reform rather than defending what it currently is. So I'll be very keen to hear the outcomes of the workshop this week, and whatever decision all of you collectively make about the direction you want to take, you can count me as your number one supporter in your decision. Because at the end of the day, none of this work has been done by me, it has been done by you. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge Glasgow's work with us over this past 10 years plus. David has been a great support and friend to our enterprise. He has given his role 110% over the past decade, and I know all of you trust and love David for what he has given us. I know that David is held in very great esteem by our community members, by our previous local commissioners, and all of our stakeholders in the communities. He has performed his role in an absolutely wonderful way. He has understood that you are the power, and his role has been to support you. And whatever happens in the months coming up, in the months in front of us, I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge David's work with us and wish him all of the very best for the future. I want to urge him to stay involved with us, and to tell him that he will always be welcome in our work in the communities, and I hope that there will be ways in which we will continue to see him in our communities in the future. So all the very best for this week's recall workshop, and I again apologise for not being able to be with you at this very important time, and I look forward to hearing from you about the directions you want to take as a commission in relation to the future. Thank you.